Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Come on!
Live from Atlanta, Georgia, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Atlanta, Georgia. Woo! We're here at regular Zoomer, Brian and Kylie's house, and Greg DeGase, who also regular Zoomer, along with a little crew here, Mike Stone, my new friends. Welcome, you guys. We got a live crew here. This whole Atlanta Sangha, we had a nice program last night at Kashi. And now it was Radhastami too. But I celebrated by just chanting a chapter of the Bhagavad-gita and calling up Mara late last night and reading a pastime about Radharani. That's how we celebrated because I was too tired to go to the temple. How are you, Kastuba? What was your night like? What was your day like yesterday?
I in the evening I did go to the temple.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. The Bhakti Center.
How was it?
Nice.
Like you're gonna say anything else but good.
Well, I didn't stay for the whole thing because I didn't want to stay out too late. I'm getting that way, But
you're getting that way, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're at that age. You're like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not fasting till midnight.
I'm not fasting till midnight. Must be done, Raghunath.
Okay. All right. You are. Forget it.
Not on Radhastami though. Anyway, it was beautiful.
Good. Well, alrighty. Well, today's Q&A day. If you're new to the show, welcome. We do questions every Saturday. And we've been going late too this week because of my traveling. We've been starting the show at 8:00. So if you'd like to join us on Zoom, email Mara, Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. She'll send you the Zoom codes. And, we jump around a little bit. We go 6 a.m., 7 a.m., sometimes 8 a.m., but we try to keep it at 6 a.m. But what is it, Mara? This whole week we're doing 8 a.m.?
Yeah, we're going to do 8 a.m. next week.
For a while now, Raghunath.
Yeah. There's also no show on Sunday.
And there's no show this Sunday. Okay, so there's a daily yoga podcast. We try to keep it daily. It doesn't always work. Trying our best here. Today, me and Mike Stone are getting in the car. We're driving to Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, for the Furnace Festival.
For the Furnace Fest with Turnstile and some other bands.
Is Walter going to be there?
Walter's going to be there.
There you go. I get to see Walter.
Gorilla Biscuits is playing today. Judge is playing tomorrow. It's a whole family reunion of my old hardcore days.
Okay.
And then I fly out. And then I fly out in the morning and go to the Ahimsa Festival in upstate New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward.
Oh, you go straight to the Ahimsa Festival?
Yeah. It's been a whirlwind weekend. Starting last Tuesday.
The Ahimsa Festival is going on like during the weekdays?
No, I came to Nashville Tuesday. So Ahimsa Festival is all weekend. Okay, the Atlanta Brahmacharis just showed up. Good morning, Bhakti Nate. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So we haven't had announcements yet, have we? Oh, we did.
Miss Mary, you got any announcements for us?
Yep. We got back to recovery group meetings today at 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 Eastern time. And Inanda Chandra's Shloka memorization group meets at 10 a.m. today.
So if you're listening to this for the first time on Facebook, this is a thing. We got a thing going on here. We got a huge community. We got about 13,000 people every day watch. Plus there's people on Zoom that watch. And we've got sage groups you can find out about on our website, Wisdom of the Sages. It's the 11th hour. If you want to sign up for a sage group, now's the time to do it. And we do this every day, so you can listen. You can, if you just got into this, you can binge listen to old episodes just wherever you get podcasts, Facebook. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. You can do that even on YouTube.
I think Stitcher went down, Raghunath. I know that
Stitcher went down. You know, it was a bad name. It was a bad name. I would have
You always
rebranded
liked that
finally.
name, though.
I just like saying it, but I didn't like the brand, truthfully.
Okay.
Stitcher went down. Yep. One of those startups. We're going to make it big.
It's be Stitcher. They all
Stitcher. We're
sit
going to call
around
it
some
Stitcher. Who's going to be on
office
Apple
room?
Who's
Okay,
going to listen
got
to Spotify?
Let's go with Stitcher. And some
it's
people
always-
were in that
it's
room,
always-
Raghunath. Some people were in that room saying Stitcher's not the way to go.
I don't like the name. It's not going to do. It's not going to work.
They went with it.
Do you remember? Do you remember when everything was going to like, what were they called? MP3s. MP3. It's going to be MP3s. You don't even remember that. It's just like happened, and everybody throw your money into MP3s. That's where the money's going to be. And it's like, what?
Things
Or
changed.
what was the other?
fast.
There were so many pre-Facebook platforms. What were they called?
MySpace.
I didn't even have one. That's how short-lived that was. I didn't even like, nah.
Okay, Raghu, we got
All right,
questions.
let's do
to
this.
answer.
What are your questions?
Well, I thought you
MySpace.
had someone there that had a question.
Oh yeah, we got Bhakti-Nate here. Bhakti-Nate's here. Your
Bhakti-Nate.
questions first, Bhakti-Nate. All right, sure. Come here. Get over here. He just showed up, so I didn't tell him the protocol, which is stick your face right in the microphone. Look at yourself in the mirror here. Come here. Come close, Bhakti-Nate. Bhakti-Nate, I met him the day before yesterday. Nice guy. Very nice guy. I was at the program yesterday, and he's a brahmachari at the temple. Why don't you tell your story a little bit, how you got into bhakti, etc.?
Hare Krishna.
You don't have to give your whole bio, but just a little bit about you, what you're doing, where you're at, and how you got into bhakti.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raghu Prabhu, Mayor, and everyone who makes this possible. So I was interested in yoga, practicing a little bit of the yoga presented in a book by BKS Iyengar called Light on Yoga. And so I was what I considered getting more serious. And at the same time, I had heard a friend just moved into an ashram. It happened to be a bhakti ashram. So I was interested, but I thought it was more of the physical yoga. I thought, they're living in little huts and being really austere and this and that. And at the time, for whatever reason, I guess I was attracted to that. But then he started trickling in more and more of the devotional aspect of it. And he showed me I think he showed me the interview with Raghunath Prabhu on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Rogan.
So that was a good introduction to it, the bhakti philosophy. And then just more and more. And then eventually I got the association of the devotees at Rupanuga Vedic College with Dhanavir Goswami Maharaj. And that really started like holding my hand through it as I started to adopt more and more of the practices and chanting the Maha Mantra on the mala beads. And
Okay, hold it. This is turning into a long bio here. No, I'm sorry. I'm just
Anyway,
kidding.
it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful
Yeah, it's a
story.
beautiful No, thank you. I don't. mean to
Welcome,
go-
Nate.
Welcome, Nate. We'd love to have you here. Thank you.
Let's just do the whole show on Nate's
We
backstory.
could. I mean, it would be interesting.
He didn't know.
Okay.
He didn't
But-
know. He didn't come early, and I
You
didn't
didn't
prep
train.
him.
Yeah, you didn't prep.
It's his
Okay.
first time. But okay, so he's
Thank you, Nate.
interested in yoga. He's interested in all things mystical and spiritual and devotional. And he's been you live in the temple for how long now?
almost 2.5 years, a little
Oh,
over
all
2
right.
years.
Are you serious? Okay. All right. So your question, sir. Here, can you hold the mic?
Yes,
Put
yes,
it
I-
right on your mouth.
Absolutely. So my question is, for a bhakti yogi, can it be helpful at all to incorporate practices like kriya yoga, kundalini, tantra yoga, things like this? And if not, or if so, if it is at all helpful, how can one safely practice these and keep Krishna in the center?
Good question.
Very good question. Very good question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, Nate. Very good
Thank
question.
you kind of set him up wrong. You said, just make this real quick, but tell us how you came to this, why you got involved.
Well, it's interesting. I like to know where the community's from, and I think people like
you can't
to
tell
know.
some. Tell me everything about you and do it
Do
one
it three
sentence.
three sentences, please.
Okay. Do you want to start? Should I start?
No, I think you should start. Go for it.
There's a lot I could say about that question.
All right, go. What you got?
Well, first of all, I think it's a great question. You know what, he threw out 3 terms, right? Kundalini,
Yeah.
tantra, kriya, and those terms are used in so many different ways. Like you can pick up one book on kriya yoga. Like if you pick up something from, say, who am I thinking of?
No, Yogananda.
Let's say Shivananda. Let's say Shivananda.
Yogananda's the Kriya Yoga guy.
Well, let's say there's so many. Let's say if you pick up a book on kriya yoga from someone like Shivananda, or like from the Bihar School of Yoga, it's probably talking about practices like Nauli and, how to put like a cloth up one nostril and pull it out the other one, and different
That's fun.
Cleanses, different kind of bodily cleanses that have an effect on the mind. That are meant to have an effect. They're practice. How to take a piece of cloth and put it,
swallow the gauze,
pull it up. Yeah,
very interesting, huh? Swallowing the gauze, clean out your esophagus.
Or what is it? Neti, you pour water into one nostril, it's coming out the other nostril, and then so many other things.
Love that. Love that.
Love it.
Love it.
So, but if you go to the Yoga Sutras, Kriya Yoga is practically like what we're practicing in Bhakti Yoga, right? It's like it's a part of the Yoga Sutras where it's saying, it's really hard to get into samadhi through Ashtanga yoga, but this Kriya yoga is a simpler, more direct path. That's there. But I think in general, the way that so let's go through them each. Like Kundalini. Kundalini has this idea that there's this latent energy that's like sitting down, coiled like a snake at the base of the spine.
It's there, Kasuba.
I'm not saying it's not.
I can help you raise yours.
I don't want you to. That's my point. And that's where this question's going. and that through meditations, very directed types of meditations, one can release that energy. And when that's released, I guess it like gives you some kind of like energy and clarity and apparently but they say it's very dangerous. You may do it wrong. It sets off all kinds of negative consequences. Or
I've heard people can get like strokes.
Yeah, you get a stroke.
Like
yeah,
I've heard it depends if you have a very, very qualified teacher teaching it to you,
and if you're a qualified student, right?
That's a good point too, because you got to understand those things are advanced things. The preliminary for that stuff is controlling your senses. Yeah. So we don't want to. No one wants to control their senses. They just want the magic. That's the want the magic without doing any of the work.
Well, that brings us to tantra, and because like tantra, tantric ritual, like the idea behind it is that it's meant to access the spiritual through the mundane, right? As opposed to rejecting the mundane. Like if you go to like a kind of orthodox Upanishadic kind of approach, you're rejecting the world, right? You're rejecting things like, say, sex. You're rejecting, you're walking away from it. You're trying to get to the spiritual by negating the material. Whereas in Tantra, they're trying to sublimate material experience rather than negate it, right? And so within our own bhakti practices, Tantra is there. Like the pujas that we do are there. Even if you go deeper into them, it's like,
what does the actual word tantric mean in Sanskrit?
Well, that's what I was just saying. That it has to do with accessing the spiritual through the mundane rather than negating it, right? So, like say, if you read these Archana Padhatis, these step-by-step guides to the ritual of worship of the form involving yantras, involving mantras, this is all tantric, and like what you would like say, like you have like a brass tray, within that you take some tilak or some kind of clay or sandalwood paste. You make it's basically like a Star of David, right? Like you make this yantra. Within that you write the word kleem. Each aspect of the syllable kleem as you write it has its different meaning, right? This is all written about. I think it's even in Brahma Samhita, you know, like the dot above the M in Kleem, you know, represents Radha and Krishna's kissing. You know, it's like it's quite esoteric and all that. Then you place the form in that yantra in the center of it. So it's you're using all material ingredients to focus your mind in a particular way and sublimate your mind. You know, so there are ways to use the things of this world and have them take our mind deeply into bhakti thought. But when we say the word tantra nowadays, you know, a lot of it is, if you read Vyasadev's text, like I try to, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we try to follow in a very orthodox way. If you, in the sense that if you take Vyasadev's writings, he's not going to talk about like tantric sex, right? He's not going to recommend that. Whereas like someone else, but tantra grows out of his writings by authorized people. They say we can find ways to engage the things of this world towards taking us to exactly where Vyasadeva wanted us to go. But there's other people that are going to take it and they're going to twist it and do other things like, hey, yeah, let's use sex. As a matter of fact, I'm a tantric guru. And rather than reject sex like yogis have done for millennia, I'm going to show you how to use it in such a way, you know, and you know, I'll be Krishna and you'll be Radha. And so the whole thing actually gets very
perverse. Yeah.
And so we do engage in tantra in a sense, but it's in a way that's where we can draw these lines very clearly about how it's going to something very pure. If you look at all of Vyasadev's works, where does it all end up? Where does it culminate? It culminates in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where the gopis, they don't try to you know, they're not doing kundalini, you know, meditation. They're not doing kriya practices. They go to Krishna and they cry in front of him and they say, please accept us as your servants. Mm-hmm. And that's really, it's that simple idea that is where we're really going to now. All those other practices, there's an authentic way to do them. Theoretically, they can be helpful for bhakti yogi, but in general, they're not so much encouraged. As a matter of fact, in general, if you go to the writings of the great teachers in bhakti yoga, generally they're going to warn more about avoiding these, not getting caught up, not getting distracted. Just move forward, straight ahead. You know, like there's these, we've quoted these verses sometimes, this one verse in particular. But when you get to the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, there's such super excellent, clear descriptions of yoga and of bhakti. And I wanted to read this one, or these two verses. Even ignorant living entities, even ignorant ones, right? People like me, right? Can very easily come to know the Supreme Lord if they adopt those means prescribed by the Supreme Lord himself. Raghunath, where can we find the Supreme Lord prescribing means to attain him? Speaking,
where can we find the Supreme Lord?
He's prescribing the method to know him.
Bhagavad-gita?
Bhagavad-gita, right? So it's so easy. Just go to the Bhagavad-gita. But and I will in a moment. The process recommended by the Lord is to be known as Bhagavad Dharma, or devotional service to the Supreme. And then he says this verse. This verse is so key, so important, really gets to the heart of it. O King, one who accepts this process of devotional service, of bhakti, will never blunder on their path in this world. Even while running with eyes closed, he will never trip or fall.
That gives great hope.
I mean, the point, I can try to become a kundalini yogi and sit there, you know, trying to raise this energy from the bottom of my spine. And even if I do it, how am I going to engage that in a way? You know, it's like, I'm probably not going to do it. I'm probably going to fake that I'm doing it or screw it up how I'm doing it. Or even if I did get some enlivening, powerful energy, that am I going to use it in devotional service? It's more likely I'm just going to kind of get distracted from the point. You know,
here's a quote by Hanuman. You know, we were talking about this, and I was reading all these things by Rupa Goswami this morning from Padyavali, which is an anthology of devotional poetry. This is what Hanuman says in that regard. "O Lord, you are the master and I am your servant. I do not desire any kind of liberation from the bonds of repeated birth and death that will break that relationship."
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, that's, and that verse is especially showing that he doesn't want impersonal liberation, as opposed to he wants, right? Yeah. But
we're not
that's
even
it.
saying that those things aren't real, that those things aren't attainable, through an incredibly disciplined life. But it's different than love.
Bhakti yogis are not so interested in that. Yeah, they're interested in
Yeah.
love. Now in the Bhagavad-gita, how am I going to achieve this enlightened state? How am I going to achieve this fully realized state? Am I going to do it through subtle meditational practices? Am I going to do it through physical practices like kriya yoga? Am I going to do some far out, bizarre tantric practices? Krishna just says, and these are the four. This is from the 4 verses that are considered to be like the nutshell verses of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Tesham satata yuktanam, bhajatam pritipurvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tvam yena mam upayanti te. To those who constantly are devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they come to me, right? To show them special mercy, right? I, dwelling within their hearts, why not just appeal to that person that's already in the heart, right? Why worry about my kundalini power to make it rise? Why, I, dwelling in their heart, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance.
I mean, I can understand if you're lost in the material world, like we all are, lost in the material world, and all we know is bhakti, all we know is sense gratification, and we're sick of it. It didn't satisfy us. We know there's something more out there, and then we hear a book about attaining a joy higher than the body, a bliss higher than the body, and there are these. It's attractive.
Yeah.
But when you're zooming even more out, Vyasadeva himself, the author of all these things, says, "Hey, check this out. Here's another verse on impersonal liberation. Bhakti means devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mukti means impersonal liberation, where there is no longer any devotional service. Who's so foolish that after attaining devotional service, he would still desire to attain mukti?"
Okay, but Raghunath, I think the question isn't necessarily about I think what's being asked is, could these things be used towards bhakti?
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Can I jump in at this point, or you have more to go?
Let me just read a bit more. Just a bit, Raghunath. I know you got a lot of good stuff to share, but I wanted to go a little bit with this Bhagavad Gita thing. And before I do that, let me just share this. That someone may have a tendency, like a psychological tendency of attraction towards these kind of practices, right? I'm a bhakti yogi. I want bhakti. I want devotional service to Krishna. That's my goal. Still, I find myself attracted to tantric practices. Okay, if that's your thing, if we can accommodate that, right? Like you could become one of these purohits, you could be the person that's doing the wedding ceremony and that's doing the just like we went to I went to the Radhastami festival yesterday. It involved all kind of tantric ritual, the abhishek and so on. So like if you have a natural tendency towards that kind of thing, it can be engaged, but let's keep it engaged, moving clear in the right direction. Are you speaking to me, Raghunath? Or you?
No, I wasn't speaking to you. I was just
okay. You're just moving your mouth. Okay,
my mouth round, stretching my lips.
But here's the point: Bhagavad Gita is a book that it's the essential teachings that we need to take from the broad, Vedanta, from the broad Hinduism, if you want to call it that, where Krishna simplifies it and brings it right to the point. And this is how it ends. I'm going to read from the final verses of the Bhagavad Gita towards the end, when he's wrapping it all up, speaking to Arjuna, but speaking to all of us. Hey, this is not so complicated. This is not so simple. Keep it simple, right? Krishna says, in all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. O Arjuna, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential, right? This is more confidential than kundalini, than tantra, deliberate on fully. And then ultimately it's up to you. You do what you wish to do. But then he just pushes it one more time. But because you're my very dear friend, I'm speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me. It is for your benefit. He's pleading. He's pleading with us. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me. Offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this, because you are my very dear friend. And then this is what he said. And then this is the point. This is the clincher. This is the final word. Abandon all varieties of dharmas. Abandon all of that stuff. And just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all your bad karma, from all your entanglement. Do not fear. Right? He shrinks it all. We play this song every morning, right? When you're greeting everyone, which is actually a song by Ravi Shankar.
Yeah.
I assume it's written in Prabhuji.
I guess if you're listening to this podcast not live, we only play, for those who are on Zoom, we play this song. But if you're listening to it on, most of you guys are not listening to it on Zoom.
We play this song and Raghunath says hello to everyone.
If you come on Zoom, I say hello to everybody during the George Harrison and Ravi Shankar song.
And so that song's written, Ravi Shankar was a Bengali. The song, he wrote it, but it's written very much in the style of like Bhakti Vinod Thakur and these traditional bhajans. Not only in its style, but in its message.
You have that mantra?
Yeah. So this is, it's a simple song, right? He's saying probably it's a song to you're my guru, right? Always dwell in me, dwell in my heart, dwell in my thoughts. Prabhuji, Daya Karo, be merciful to me, right? Mana me anabaso, always dwell, in my heart. Then he says, without you, I'm feeling empty, but you can fill me up with the nectar of love. It's very much like a Bhakti Vinod Thakur song. And then he says this. He says, Tantra, mantra, puja, nahi janu. Right?
I don't know mantra, tantra.
Yeah,
yantra.
I don't know the rituals of Tantra. I don't know all the fancy mantras and so on. He says, my tu kevala. Keva means like only. My tu kevala tumako hi manu. I only know you. I'm a simple guy. You've got good instructions for me. All of these other things, rather I just do devotional service, even if I'm running blindfolded, even if my both eyes are closed. This is a safe path. This is a path that's direct, that's powerful, that Krishna is just saying, just focus on this and forget everything else. It's like, we want to complicate things. Now, if we have some strong desire for those things, then with proper guidance, we can find a way to engage those in the simple process of just giving our life and our body, mind, and words to Krishna. But we should be careful not to get too distracted by these things. That's in general. Okay, Raghu, I would like to hear more.
I've got a few things. Great. I appreciate your insight, your depth of knowledge, your realizations. Here's what I was going to say. There's sometimes if people have had good parents, my parents were pretty good. I had my issues with them. I had good parents, but then there was times, and they were very loving, especially when I was young. And sometimes they would go on a trip. They're like, we're going to Italy. You're in charge. There's food in the refrigerator and stuff like that. They'd go on a trip and I was still sort of young, but they sort of would trust that I'd be okay. I had older brothers that would check in on me. And there was a feeling of like independence. Like I'm going to make my food. I'm going to stay up late and watch TV. It's a freedom from like it's a freedom I had. And even though it was better sort of than usual, I felt there was like always a longing for like a doting affection that you also get in bhakti. There's a doting affection that we reciprocate with Krishna, and it's better than even just freedom from the pain or from any like regulations I have to have of this world. It's higher than that. That being said, I love yoga. I love fasting. I love cleansing. I love all these yogic practices, and I use them, and I have used them for years. I think they're great. I love even things that aren't sort of like, I love I love anything that you can use. I mean, I do cold baths, I do cold showers, I do, sauna, I do anything.
All kinds of tantra.
Tantra, you know what I mean? I do pranayam, and I find that all of that assists me towards my bhakti. Now, people can take detours. You can't. Most of you guys can't see me right now, but imagine if I'm eating a pakora or whatever, a piece of cake or pie or something, and putting it in my mouth. That's an easy way to taste it. A harder way to taste it is to wrap my arm around my head, around my cheek, and then put it in my mouth. Okay? So here's the deal. If the things that you're doing are bringing you higher, are calming your mind, are making you healthier, right? Are, giving you longevity and strength and brilliance and assist you to rise early and bring you to the sattvic states of being so you can chant the Maha Mantra better, so you can feel more connected with Krishna, so you can render service better. That's great. That's keeping the main thing, right?
Okay.
If my job is to drive to LA and I've got to be there in 48 hours, from New York, you got to be very focused. You can't take many detours. You do have to stop off. You do have to get gas. I have to stop in Scranton to get to LA. That's just what I have to do.
All right.
Don't get enamored with Scranton.
Okay.
You can't stay in Scranton. If you do, you're missing the goal. That's all. So it's one of those things. If all these things help you to get to bhakti, and they can, but if you're getting caught up in these detours, or if you're eating that pakora and wrapping your hand around your neck and you can't even get it in your mouth, what good is it? So I think these things are great. I think they're completely useful, but you got to be careful because a lot of times they're detours they can be detours. And I've seen people get lost in them. But Maya can show up anywhere. It can show up in Vedic rituals, but Maya can show up also in gross sense gratification too. So there's something beautiful about these Vedic rituals that are meant to elevate the consciousness. You just can't end up in Scranton and park it there if you want the goal. What do you think of that?
Thank you, Raghunath. You're a little bit more good cop. I was a little bit more bad cop.
Yeah. No, I think they're good things. A lot of these things are good things. People can get lost in them. And sometimes these things will, it depends what
Well,
it
let
is.
me
You know what I
share
mean?
this,
It depends what the detour is. He was talking about various Vedic yoga things. I it's in my book. I think I tell the story about I got initiated by this pranayam guru.
Excuse me.
I tell you about It's a true story, man. It's a true story. I really wanted to learn mystic powers, and I was in South India, and I knew this. I met this young guy. Should I tell this story? It's an interesting story. I met this guy who could read
where
minds.
were you?
South India.
Where?
I'm gonna tell you all my secrets. I'll tell you later.
I want to know.
Okay, but this was a young guy, and I knew that there were secret pranayams out there. That
You were really searching for the secret.
I was
think you're
searching for
joking
secret
about that
pranayams.
stuff. Okay.
I was searching because I know that a lot of the stuff that they teach in the yoga books in the West are not. They're just very, very basic. And so I was waiting to see this Ayurvedic doctor, and he was a young, beautiful man. And all these people are going, and he's diagnosing them, and he's giving them things. And I was last, and sun was setting, and he looked at me, and he goes, "You're here for the secret pranayams." I was like, that. He goes,
Well, because everybody comes here for that.
no, the guy read my mind.
It's like we're going to Baskin Robbins saying, "You're here for the ice cream." How did you know?
You're here for the 36 flavors, aren't you? And he looked at me and he goes, "I cannot give you unless my guru approves. Come back tomorrow."
Oh, wow.
So I came back the next day. He said, "My guru says I cannot give you, but he will give you."
Oh.
I go, "Okay." I go, "Where's your guru? Can I go visit him?" And he goes, "He lives in a cave, but he is coming here in 3 days." I was like, "Okay, great. I get to meet his guru." So this old man shows up and puts me aside, and he goes, I can't believe I'm telling this story. Why do you, he didn't speak English, but he translated it. "Why do you want to learn these pranayams?" And I was like, oh God, he's putting I was like, well, to learn magical tricks. And I said, well, I'm into bhakti yoga, and I think that whatever I get, I can use in God's service to serve God and to serve humanity.
And he said, liar, you want power.
And he hit me with a bamboo stick. No,
What did
he said he just gave me a head bob, like, okay, I passed the test. And so I'm not going to tell you what he told me, but he told me methods and mantras that I did every day. Methods and mantras. And he said, you always have to do them with mantras.
Okay, but now let me ask you this, Raghunath. When you ask the same question to A.G. Mohan.
Well, that's part. You're making me tell my whole story in my book here, because this is a good story. Okay, so anyway, let me just tell you about these mantras. I started chanting them on a regular basis and doing this pranayama practice.
What kind of mantras were they?
I can't tell you. They were secret.
You give me an idea. Give me
I'm not telling you. I
want to know.
Qualified to be initiated into this lineage.
If you're qualified, I'm qualified.
But I will tell you this. He cracked me right in the third eye.
Okay.
Gave me some Shakti pot. But what I've realized after time was
just how dangerous these
aren't assisting me in my bhakti.
Okay.
I'm feeling some bliss. I'm feeling some high. I felt my third eye open, but it wasn't assisting me with where I wanted to be in my bhakti. It was giving me a type of impersonal liberation.
What happened? What do you mean you felt your third eye open?
You're just such a cynic of that.
What
you don't believe anything.
Tell me what it meant. What does that mean?
I'm not telling you.
Throwing that around.
I'm not telling you.
What did it feel like? You just told me
you
it
come
happened.
here and serve me, and then I'll tell you.
Your third eye.
You think it's so cheap.
Okay. So then you asked the same question to A.G. Mohan.
Well, this is a great question. So then there's the most, all right, I'm going to just tell this story. It's in my book, but the most authoritative person in the teachings of Krishnamacharya is most likely A.G. Mohan.
I would give it to him. I would say that.
He's the most authoritative. He did private lessons. He and his wife did private practice for like 20 years, like 5 days a week, 6 days a week, something ridiculous like that. And so he knew all the teachings of Krishnamacharya, who pretty much single-handedly popularized yoga in the West through his disciples, Pattabhi Jois and Iyengar,
and a couple others,
and some others. Basically, everything we know of yoga is a lot of it's coming from this person, Krishnamacharya. And I heard that there were secret pranayams taught by Krishnamacharya nobody knew. And so I always wanted to meet this person. And one day I was in Mumbai with a bunch of students with Radhanath Swami. And Radhanath Swami says, there's a person I would like you to meet. He's a very senior yogi disciple of Krishnamacharya. I'm like, you're kidding. Who? He says, his name is A.G. Mohan. So I was very interested because Krishnamacharya was a Vaishnava. So there were also Vaishnava mantras. So I said to him, I'm so honored to meet you. He was a very nice Vaishnava. He and his wife are very nice Vaishnavas. And I said, would you like to teach yoga to our class today? We'd be really honored. And he said, I will come to your class, but I will just witness. And I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. I don't want to teach. I don't want to teach in front of him. And I was like, well, maybe you could teach something. Maybe you could teach any facet of the yoga system. Perhaps some secret pranayamas. He says, well, you start the class and maybe I will say something.
Was this before or after the other secret
This was
pranayama?
after. This was after.
So he probably looked at you and said, his third eye is not open.
He might have said, this man is in the know. I can help him further.
Okay.
And then that way he can pass this knowledge to Kastuba and Mara.
But yet he withholds it when asked. Okay. Continue.
Okay. So,
What happened?
okay. Continuing with this very good story. So he said, so I started every class back then with Shri Krishna Govinda Hari Murari. These are the famous mantras of Draupadi with her hands in the air in total desperation. She's about to get completely disrobed in front of everybody. And in total desperation, she puts her hands in the air and calls out, Shri Krishna Govinda Hari Murari He Natha Narayana Vasudeva.
I like it when you sing that, Raghunath. Did you compose the melody that you sing?
I composed that melody.
You did good on that, Raghunath.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sing it quick for everyone.
Shri Krishna Govinda Hari Murari Hey Nata Narayana Vasudev.
Then you sort of
Vasudev.
do
Hey
Vasudeva at the end.
Govinda.
Oh, that's when it really takes off.
That's
Hare
yeah,
Murari.
Hey Nata Narayana Vasudeva. So that's a mood that we sing in bhakti. Because how do we call for Krishna? We cry for Krishna.
Helpless.
We reach for Krishna. Please, Krishna. And sometimes we say in bhakti, that's in those destitute situations, you can actually be with Krishna.
Okay.
So we glorify our law. Sometimes we say, if Krishna loves you, he takes things away because we become destitute and there's no other shelter except him. So I was singing that song, before the yoga class. And then I would say, well, you'd like to teach? And he's like, no, you teach. So I'm teaching yoga, completely humiliating, teaching in front of him. And then I would say, okay, you want to share anything? No. I said, maybe. He said, maybe tomorrow I will come back. I said, okay.
He's
so
a
the next
sweet,
day,
charming
okay.
man too, though, right?
He's
you
a
got
very
picture,
sweet, adorable
nice
man.
fluffy beard,
Beautiful.
big eyebrows, and
He
sweet
and his
kind of
wife
mood.
just sitting there in a dhoti and
Very
a
Brahminical.
sari,
Very Brahminical.
witnessing. I felt so bad he had to watch me. And so the next day I was like, oh, thank you for coming back. Perhaps you can share something, anything, perhaps some secret pranayams, whatever you like to. And again, same thing happened. Shri Krishna Govinda, I taught yoga class.
All right,
That was it. On the third day, he came again.
You're like,
and
today's the day.
I said, listen, today's the day. I got to just be direct. I was like, Krishnamacharya has many, many secret teachings. We would love to know. People know so many teachings, but they don't know all of the teachings. You seem to know everything. I'm completely honored that you're here. Can you please share anything? Asanas, meditational practice, some
Secret
mantras,
pranayams.
perhaps some secret pranayams.
Did you lean forward and like
I
that?
leaned forward and he said something I'll never forget. He said, Raghunath, do you know this verse, Ishvara Prananidan from the Yoga Sutras? So Ishvara, the Lord, Ishvara Pranana, your very prana, dan means like the word donate. Give your very prana to Ishvara.
Mm-hmm.
So he said this saying, Ishvara Prananidan, which appears twice in the Yoga Sutras. He says, you are doing that when you're chanting Shri Krishna Govinda. Do you understand? That is the secret pranayam.
That's the prana you're giving right
That's
there.
the prana. You are giving your prana to Ishvara. That is the secret pranayam, Raghunath.
Did he do anything like
I was like,
fool or anything like that?
did he hit
Slap
me
you or
tap me?
anything?
No, he didn't. He was very sweet.
Nonsense. Okay.
And I said, oh my God, that's the secret pranayam. And then I leaned and I said, but do you have any more secret
Fancier
pranayams?
ones, though, yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah, giving life to Krishna, fine. But any other secret ones?
Oh, Krishna. All right.
Should I tell my A.G. Mohan story?
Yeah, I didn't know you had an A.G. Mohan story. By the way, he's got a book.
I'm the one that brought A.G.
He's got a
Mohan
book
into
by
that whole
A.G.
scene,
Mohan,
Baba.
didn't I, Mara? Mara just told me I got a book in the mail by A.G. Mohan sent to me by Sandy Clemmer.
Yeah, Sandy Clemmer. I'll grab it.
Okay. Everyone's
No,
going to buy this
'cause
book now.
I'm the one that introduced A.G. Mohan to Radhanath Swami.
You did?
Yeah. Oh, you don't know this, Raghunath?
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, look at that book. Look at that book Mara's got.
Krishnamacharya
in his own words.
Oh,
By
that's
A.G.
pretty good.
Mohan.
Yep.
Thank you.
So,
And Dr. Ganesh Mohan.
that's his son.
Acha.
So, yeah, Eddie Stern brought A.G. Mohan to the Broome Street Temple, Ashtanga Yoga, New York.
Mm.
It was on the weekend. This was probably 13, 14 years ago, something like that, right? And it was on the weekend of the New York Rath Yatra, right? And so I had to miss that day. I wanted to bring him to that, but he was doing like whole weekend long seminars at Eddie's place, right? But when I met him, we clicked like immediately, right? Because he's a Vaishnava, and and we were just totally like locked in. We were just back and forth, and I saw when he was giving classes, when people were asking, he was playing bad cop in the sense that like when people were asking questions about like chakras, and he was just, oh, this stuff is too subtle, you'll never understand. There's no point in getting, like it was like that kind of
They
thing.
didn't realize who they were dealing with, like an Orthodox Vaishnava.
I really appreciated that. I felt, okay, this is honest. He could be putting on a show about things that he knows, but he's practical and pragmatic and real. And we really connected nice. And so the only time he was free, like I think his last seminar ended like midday on Sunday.
Mm.
And on that Sunday, in New York, in the temple in Brooklyn, the Radha Govinda temple in Brooklyn, like there's always a massive kirtan, right? Because like so many people are in
Sure.
town for the Rath Yatra.
D-
So
and he went to the kirtan.
I brought him and his wife Indra Devi
Mm.
to the Brooklyn temple, and I brought them up to the balcony in the temple so they could just look down on the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And it was, you know, that temple, when that temple room is packed like that, what is it? At least 15, I'd say about 1,500 people maybe in there.
Yeah, at least.
Everyone's dressed beautiful. You know, they're all decked out. All the Gurukul second generation devotees, that, you know, the girls look absolutely, you know, when the ladies dress up on those days, they're just stunning, right? Like they got beautiful saris on, and you know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's beautiful.
The men too.
The men were also, yeah. And I think Gauravani was leading kirtan.
Mm.
The whole place was dancing back and forth. Beautiful Radha Govinda, you know, absolutely gorgeously seva going on, you know, dressed incredibly, you know. Then they did the kirtan was just, you know, otherworldly. And with everyone dancing in ecstasy. And then they did a drama. And the drama, you know, it was like, first of all, the entire scene was like totally diverse, you know, racially diverse in terms of age, in terms of race, and, you know, backgrounds and all of that. You know, you had people, you know, the drama was primarily done by African Americans, you know, and it was like a Mahabharata drama. They watched that whole thing stunned from beginning to end.
Like the whole culture of India has been transported to Brooklyn somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is shocking if you've never been to America.
But it's not even that, Raghunath. It's even beyond what you just said. Like that it's not only that the whole culture of India was transported, but what he said to me, he was practically tearing up. He was speaking like he was like, I can't believe what I just saw. He was like his eyes wide open and his wife nodding in agreement, you know. But he said that type of devotion, we hardly see it in India.
Wow.
You have a hard time finding that in India. And then he began to praise Srila Prabhupada.
Wow.
Because he said, you know, he lives in Chennai.
Right.
And he lives near the ISKCON temple there. So he's familiar with ISKCON. He knows it's international. He knows something about Prabhupada brought around the world. But he had never witnessed it like that.
Right. Wow.
Being in New York and watching people from all different backgrounds, not from India, engage in puja, engage in kirtan, do Mahabharata drama with not just because my family has always done this for so many years, with full enthusiasm and love. He was blown away, and he began to praise Srila Prabhupada. How did this man, all alone, just at the end of his life, travel all around the world and bring this, not just and bring it in such a vibrant way that outside of India, you'll find it being practiced with a level of depth and sincerity and enthusiasm and beauty. Beyond that, what you can find very easily in India. It was really something.
And did he teach you the secret pranayams? That's the question we all want to know.
I didn't ask for that.
Ask and you shall receive, young Kastuba.
But you know, I think I always bring that up when talks about like cultural appropriation are brought up, because I think sometimes, although sometimes these ideas come from a sincere concern, often they're very misapplied. And here was a person, you want to talk about traditional. A.G. Mohan is a traditional person, right? As you're saying, you know, studying under the tutelage of, you just don't get more traditional than someone like Krishnamacharya.
Yeah, he was, yes.
You know, so here's a very traditional yoga teacher, you know, South Indian, Brahmin, you know, trained his entire life. He comes and watches that, and he doesn't say, hey, what is this cultural appropriation going on here? No, he knows that within the culture, it's encouraged that it's spread throughout the entire world. You know,
and you're giving credit back to the culture. You're not taking it, making your own. Hey, this is Raghunath's secret type of religious rituals. That's appropriation. Yeah, and you're taking full credit for everything.
Yeah, it's not that there aren't real problematic instances of appropriation, But when it's done with authenticity, the culture itself is calling for that. The culture itself is saying every living being has the potential to discover to discover their self, to discover God through these practices, and everyone should practice. Everyone should have the opportunity to practice them.
Oh, that was Bhakti Nate's question, boy. That was a long answer.
We milked that baby, right?
We milked that cow.
Maybe you can come back and tell us his story. We
I
actually
don't even
had
remember
time.
the question anymore.
Okay.
Oh, that was a
Good
nice
question.
story.
Yeah. So we just did one question today, I think.
We
But
just did-
yeah, these practices are authentic, they're real. But for bhakti yogis, we if we can find a way that we engage them in helping us keep the main thing.
Yeah.
If through practicing asana, I can feel enlivened and healthy so that I can serve, then let's practice some asana. Right?
If I can learn
Pranayama.
mystical powers and levitate and use it for Krishna, levitate. Big deal. Use it for Krishna.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right.
Hey, Hanuman had
All right, funny guy.
Hanuman had all 8 mystical powers, friend.
That was Hanuman.
Yeah, Hanuman. He's real.
I still don't think your third eye is open.
You can't see because you're close. But there's people on Zoom right now who have open third eye. I can see them and they see mine.
Is
We're winking
Maris
at each other with our third eye.
is Maris third eye open?
Not yet.
I thought you were
She
saying
hasn't
almost. I'm
qualified.
kidding.
She's working through her karma right now by
What about-
knitting scarves with devotions.
What about Talia? Is her third eye open?
She is not yet, but she's
What
on the
percentage?
path. She's on the path.
Brittany Payne.
Brittany Payne, she's getting there. She's getting there.
When you look, is it almost like a meter, like bars on the telephone? What do you see exactly?
Prabhu, I can't reveal all these things unless you surrender to me.
I've surrendered to you. And ask,
Have
I'm a
you?
soul surrendered to you.
Have
Tell me,
you?
Have you?
I know, Kostuba.
Now, Jamuna Priti, is that third eye open on her?
Jamuna Pretty's third eye may be open.
Maybe.
Only because when she's painting,
doing those
she's
yantras.
always meditating on Lord Jagannath, on Sri Radha, stuff like that.
What about Isabel Bilodeau?
Isabel, her third eye may be open, actually, too.
You don't know?
Well, you know,
I
I
thought
don't
you
like to reveal. I don't like to reveal everything. Those who know.
Neil Maxwell? What about Neil Maxwell? What about Neil Maxwell? Is his third eye open? Henry, what about Henry? Tell me.
Henry's a
Come on.
special soul. Henry's a special soul.
His
just
third
gonna
eye
leave it
doesn't
at
need
that.
to open, is what you're saying.
All the gates of the body become illuminated, Kostuba. Whose?
Yeah.
Those practicing Bhakti Yoga.
Well, that's everybody here.
Yeah.
But no, all of their third eyes are illuminated.
They're also open to some degree. Yours is open to some degree.
Even
It's
you.
like- just like squinting at me. Your third eye's squinting.
Third eye squinters. We're third eye squinters.
Oh, Krishna.
Third Eye Blind was a great name.
That was a pretty good band, man. I didn't like the band, but it was a good name.
I don't know anything about the band, but it's a great
Thanks for everybody for joining us today. Hey, Abhishek Guy said Bhagavad-gita had a nice podcast. Check out our podcast.
Bhakti Recovery
on Bhakti Recovery Group. If you haven't subscribed and followed that, our good friend Jiva. And Kostuba was on there too. I think Kostuba was #1 podcast there. And give them a 5-star review. You can also go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review, people who haven't done that. Some of you haven't done that, and I know who you are because my third eye is telling me right now. Okay, you need to go to Apple Podcasts, 5-star. Tell us why you appreciate the podcast, how you got here. It helps our algorithms, whatever that means. Oh, Kostuba, we're
Secret
going
algorithms.
Birmingham.
Secret algorithms, Raghunath.
Secret algorithms. Yes.